What is up, everybody? My name is Andrew, and today I'm super excited because Keen just dropped the Contact update for Space Engineers, which added not only loads of new DLC items, but also a bunch of new free items to the game that completely change everything. We're going to take a look at everything Space Engineers is adding in this new update. So let's get right to it, starting with all of the free stuff. So first of all, going into Freeland over here, Space Engineers has added a new inset connector. Over the last few updates, Keen's been adding new inset blocks, and I love this new addition with the inset connector, adding a new inset large grid connector, an inset small grid connector, and an inset small grid connector. A small connector that's inset. These differ quite a bit from the normal connector block, which doesn't have anything around it, by adding the like a block that's around the connector. And I think it looks really good, and it's going to be awesome to use. Next up is a new cockpit block, which I think looks pretty good. It's got a bit of an asterisk to it, so I'm going to let you know what that is in just a second, but let's take a look at it. So this is the cockpit block. I have it on the side here, so you can see it's got a large connection on the bottom and a couple of small connections around the back and around the sides. This is what it looks like from inside. It's got you know, some computers right there that you can mess around with. It's got a pretty decent view. I actually really like this one. Now, the asterisk that I mentioned is that this is a free block, but you do have to do something in order to get it. You have to actually sign up to the Keen newsletter in order to get this block. Now, in order to sign up to the Keen newsletter, all you're going to do is you're going to go to the main screen of Space Engineers. You're going to click this button that says sign up to the newsletter. You're going to enter your email address, and you're going to say yes to all the stuff and then sign up. Now, I'm not sure if you can immediately unsign up or if you can do whatever. You know, I don't know if you unsign up, do you lose this block? But essentially, you sign up and you get this block. It's free, but like with a catch. So I don't know, maybe I should have included this in like an in-between place between free and DLC. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, new flush cockpit block looks pretty good. But now let's move on to the ultimate Freeland stuff. The ultimate stuff that they've added for the free edition to Space Engineers. Not the free edition, I mean the base game is what I'm trying to say. This is the Prototech stuff. Now, you've probably seen a little bit on the Prototech blocks in the weeks before this, but new Prototech blocks have been added to the game, and these are end game blocks. All of these are end game blocks that you'll find with the Prototech faction. So what makes all of these blocks here that you're going to see in just a second unique is that you cannot actually build them. The only way to get them is to actually steal them from the faction. You have to actually find them in the new encounters, which have been added to this version of the game. There are a lot of new encounters on the planets and in space where you'll find, you know, blocks like this that you can actually steal and then merge onto your grids. Now, when I say you can't build them, you can actually build them. If we go look at the jump drive here, which is one of the new blocks they've added, you can build everything here except for the Prototech frame. So you'll have to find a Prototech frame somewhere. And if you have that, then you can technically build this block. The only thing that you can't build is the Prototech frame. But anyway, let's get into these blocks, starting with, I guess, the jump drive. So they've added a new Prototech jump drive, which looks very cool. It actually looks like it'll go very nicely with a couple of catwalks with a nice little area right here. You can go into it and see that the max distance is 8,000 kilometers. And I actually wonder how that compares to a normal jump drive. We do have a normal jump drive right over here that I want to check out. So the normal jump drive also has a max of 8,000 kilometers. So it seems like the Prototech one doesn't let you go any farther. You know what? Maybe it's the charge efficiency. This has a 90% charge efficiency, and this one has an 80%. So yeah, I guess it's a little more efficient. But in addition to this, which this is the new jump drive block, they've also added a small grid jump drive. So you can now put a jump drive on your small grid blocks. Now this is Prototech, so again, end game stuff, but it'll be able to go on small grid ships. Now this has a much shorter distance, with 420 kilometers being the max, and a charge efficiency also of 90%. So yeah, very cool stuff, the new Prototech jump drives. Now, I'm not planning on testing any of these blocks right now. I'm just showcasing them. We might do a couple of tests in future videos, but yeah. So there is the jump drive. Next up is the Prototech drill. Now, this guy right here is massive. This is like a boring drill. It looks really cool. Let's, can I turn it on, actually, I wonder? Let me see, does it work with this? Oh my gosh, it actually works with Build Vision. I can turn on the drill, and look at that. That's what the drill looks like when it's, you know, drilling. That's incredible. Yeah, very cool. Again, it's a Prototech block, so you can't build it unless you find that Prototech frame. It's a little bit easier to actually just go and find it in a Prototech facility. No small grid variation for this one, unfortunately, but there we go. Very cool. Next up is the Prototech assembler. Now, the Prototech assembler also doesn't have a small grid variation, but this is what it looks like. It looks very neat. It looks like it's got like a sort of you know, conveyor belt going along the side, which my Factorio brain really likes, and my Satisfactory brain also really likes. But let's take a look at this. Now, one thing that's interesting about the Prototech assembler is it's not a direct upgrade of the assembler. It's just a completely different thing. You can build Prototech stuff in this. So you can't build normal items that you could build in the assembler in this. Like I said, it's not like an upgrade. It's just a straight up different kind of assembler for Prototech stuff. So you'll notice one thing missing here, and that is the Prototech frame, because again, you cannot build that. You can only find that, but all this other stuff you can build using Prototech scrap. So you'll see a lot of end game items there. Silver, gold, we got platinum popping in there. Maybe we have some uranium in some of these. I don't know. Let's see. Nope, actually no uranium required for any of this stuff, but you'll see Prototech scrap is required for some of this stuff. So yeah, Prototech assembler, very neat looking. I love the look of these blocks, and it's very cool. There we go. Next up, we have the Prototech refinery, which I do believe this is a direct upgrade of a normal refinery. I think this can just refine stuff. It's got a refine speed of 550%, a yield rate of 200% by default. That's insane, and a power efficiency of 100%. That's insane. That's gonna refine things incredibly fast. So yeah, Prototech refinery. Let's take a look at what this thing looks like as well around the back. It's got a couple of connections right there. I love it. It looks good. I really want to put one of these things on my base, but again, you got to find one first. Now, one thing that's really awesome for this is it's got a small grid variant. We finally have a small grid version of the refinery. The Prototech refinery's got a small grid version here, and it's only got a refined speed of 150%, but that's still incredibly fast. And it's got a yield rate of 125%. So it's not as good as the large refinery, but it is still, you know, incredible. And in fact, could you imagine sticking one of these things on one of your mining ships so that it's like refining as you go? That's awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on these things over here. Let's move back over to this side, I guess. So here we have the Prototech thruster. Now this is the one that I showcased in my showcase video, the spoiler thing. Keen gave a couple of YouTubers each like a block to showcase. So all of these, by the way, have little showcase videos for them if you want to check out those. I'm sure you'll find them very easily. But anyway, yeah, this is the thruster. Now this thing is massive. This is the largest block in the game by a lot. This thing is about as large as two hydrogen thrusters, two of the industrial hydrogen thrusters, I should say. And what it basically is a gigantic ion thruster. It's a little bit less efficient on Earth, but still extremely powerful. It's very, very efficient and very powerful in space. In space, if you have this thruster, you can pretty much get to max speed in like 2 seconds. That's what we were able to test out. It's also got a small grid variant, which is very neat. I really want to find one of these things and use it in my series. I think that's going to be incredibly awesome. It's a power guzzler though. If you find one of these things, watch out. It's going to use up all your power. Finally, the last of the Prototech, oh sorry, not the last, the second to last of the Prototech blocks is the Prototech gyro, which is a lot more powerful than a normal gyroscope. It looks really cool as well. We've got a spinning ball in between this thing. It's got a small grid variation as well. So I love it. I want to find one. It's going to be awesome. And finally, the last Prototech block is going to be the Prototech battery, which is a larger version of the battery that I think stores a little bit more. Let me grab a normal battery. There we go. So the normal battery right here has a max output of 12 megawatts, a max input, I believe, of like 5 megawatts. No, a max input also of 12 megawatts, and then a max stored power of 3 megawatt hours. This one over here, on the other hand, has a max output of 48 megawatts, so it's got 4 times the output, a max input of 24 megawatts, so 2 times the input, and a max stored power of 3 megawatt hours, which is going to be 6 times the stored power of a normal battery. So that right there stores 6 times that, and it takes up 2 times the space. That's incredible. I love it. And it's a lot more, it can output a lot more, so it can serve machines a lot better as well. And of course, you may have spotted in the back, there's a small grid variation as well. We've got a small, it's incredibly thin. I love it. We have a small grid variation of the Prototech battery. Now, I love the fact that that they've taken what, you know, the needs of these batteries and put them. So with the large grid, what you really want out of a large grid battery is you want it to have a lot of power. You don't really care about its space usage because you usually have a lot of space, but a small grid, you care a lot about space usage. So they've made a thin battery. I love it. That's the normal battery in the background right there. You'll see how much bigger that normal one is. Now let's check out the power usages because I want to see this. So a normal battery has a max output of 4 megawatts, a max input of 4 megawatts, and a max stored power of 1 megawatt hour, whereas the Prototech batteries have a max output of 2.8 megawatts, a max input of 8 megawatts, so a lot more input than the normal battery, and a lot less output than the normal battery. So these are, I feel like these are kind of used for storage. And it's also got a max stored power of 2 megawatt hours, which is double what the base game battery has. Actually, one other interesting thing we'll see is that the charge efficiency of a base game battery is 80%, which means you lose 20% of your power when you're charging it. But the charge efficiency of a Prototech battery is 90%. So it's actually more efficient when you charge stuff. And I don't think, does this have a... No, this is also 90% charge efficiency here. So yeah, very cool. I just love all these blocks. All end game things, all base game, by the way. So all this stuff is coming with the free contact update. Or I say coming, it's in the game. It's in now. If you play the game now, all this stuff is in the game. So that's very awesome. With all this stuff said, and we're not going to test all this stuff right now. We might test it in an upcoming video, but with all this stuff checked out, let's move on to DLC land and check out what the DLC has brought to the game. So the new Contact DLC. So starting off, we have a new variation of pistons. So this right here is a square piston. Instead of just being a normal looking piston, it looks very squarular. You'll see, I mean, it's very, it's a square piston. That's what it is. It looks quite cool. You'll see that this, yeah, there we go. It's got a small variant as well. There we are. Square piston. There's not much to say about that. It's a very cool looking square piston. Let's move on to the next block. Oh, these are awesome. Okay, so what we have now, and looks maybe deceiving. This is not actually a more powerful version of a Gatling gun. This is just a reskin of the Gatling gun, and it's called the Gatling Turret Type 2. It's got a small and a large grid variation. It looks really awesome. I love it. But it's important to say that these are effectively the same as normal base game Gatling turrets, just a reskin to make it look a little bit, more unique or interesting. Along the same vein, we have a reskin of the rocket thing, the rocket shooter. We have a Type 2 version of the rocket turret. And again, these are the same thing as the base game one. They just are a bit of a reskin. So yeah, if you want reskin versions, it's part of this DLC. Looks very cool. Next up, moving to the side, we have a bunch of new floodlights. Now these are really interesting because they provide a lot of light going forward, but they also have a bunch of different angled variations. So you have a straight up variation, which points straight. You have an angled downward variation. You have a sideways sort of angle. You have the other sideways sort of angle, and those are all the large grid ones. On the small grid, you have very much the same stuff with a straight one. You have a downward angled one. You have a sideways angled. You also have a downward facing one, which I think is kind of cool. And you have a diagonal one. So usually if you want to get these effects with a spotlight, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to, use a piston, sorry, not a piston, but like a hinge to get it angled downward, and even two hinges to get it angled diagonal like that. But with these blocks, you can actually, just have a light aimed that way without the need for that stuff. So I think that's kind of a cool addition to the game. Over behind me, what we have is the new, what do they call this? The concave, no, parabolic antenna. We have a new parabolic antenna, which looks just like that. I believe it's functionally the same as a normal antenna, but it's parabolic. It's an interesting look for an antenna. So you could set it up like this if you wanted to, putting on a rotor and a hinge to have it look like a proper spinning antenna. Same thing on the small grid. You could set it up just like that. Now I think these are functionally the same as normal antenna. So yeah, it's got a max broadcasting radius of 50 kilometers, and this one also has a max broadcasting radius of 50 kilometers. So they are functionally the same thing. It's just a reskin of the antenna that you can put on a cool little spinny thing. Moving on, we have the captain's desk, which is a new addition. It's got a little functional screen right there. You can put whatever you want on it. It's just a cool version of the desk. Are these actually usable? I guess they are. I guess, it's got 1,000 liters of storage. That's kind of cool. I like that. Captain's desk. We've also got new bunks. Now, all this stuff that I'm going to show here is all small grid. So it does not have large grid variants, but all small grid stuff. We have a bunk right here, which you can position any way you want. It takes up 2 blocks in height, so you can put one directly on top of it if you want, or whatever you want. We have a couple of kitchen blocks, 5 to be exact. We've got a sink. We've got an openable microwave if you want to nuke things. We have a refrigerator, which actually does have some storage there. You can put your Nuka-Colas in there. We have an openable oven, which does not, I believe, have any storage for this one. And we have a coffee maker, so that's how you make your Klein Colas. Not functional though, you can't actually make Klein Cola there. If only, that'd be so cool. Or no, Cosmic Coffee, not Klein Cola. How would you make Klein Cola in a coffee maker? I don't know. We have a first aid cabinet over here. So this actually does have some storage. You can throw some first aid kits in there if you want to. It's very cool looking. And we have basically a small grid version of the jukebox. It's a media player. It plays things just like the jukebox does, and it fits on small grid. Now all this stuff right here, small grid, no large grid variations. It's all small grid stuff that you can, you can place how you want. Moving behind me again, we have two new additions to the gates. So we have a small, I think these are just small gates, right? Yeah, these are small gate wide. So it's basically just a person-sized gate that's a little bit wide. And we have a small gate tall over here next to it, which is again, a person-sized gate that's just a little tall. Yeah, new gates. One opens to the side, one opens up. Very cool things that you can add. They look cool. I always like more door options. I love door options. I don't think these have small grid variations, unfortunately. But yeah, very cool. Next up, we have the modular cargo container. Now, this is only a small grid thing over here. This is essentially, it's kind of like a medium cargo container. It's got the storage of somewhere in between a medium cargo container and a large cargo container, but it's just kind of another variant for the cargo. It's got large connections, it's got small connections, it's got a little control panel right there. And if you look into it, this has 100,000 liters. I'm on the maximum settings for storage right now, so I'm not sure what that would be in the normal. I guess in realistic, it'd be 10 times less, so 10,000 liters. I think I might find myself using these on the exterior of ships, or even just to convert from large connection to small connection, because they have that small connection on the side, but it's very nice. Finally, this I believe is the last new thing that they have in the DLC. This, here, I'll turn my flashlight on because it's a little darker here. This is the new bridge set right here. So these are really interesting because you can actually have a seat kind of go under them because it kind of fits in very nicely. So we have a bridge helm, which is the one with the seat right here, which includes that window. We also have a bridge button panel, which is very similar to the base game console block button panel. You've also got a couple of normal bridge window blocks right here. So this one's just a normal one. This one is a corner one. This one's a corner one as well. You've got a couple of other variations of corner where you have, like, let's say it ends like this, or it ends with the curve downward, or it ends with nothing in the front. So just a couple of options to choose from. And then it's got these side pieces as well to, you know, end off any side that you want to end. So yeah, a couple cool new blocks to add to the collection. I always love new window blocks, although it seems like we're getting quite a few of those, so you're gonna have a lot of choice to choose from when you're looking for a new window block. And finally, they've added a couple new DLC blocks to existing DLC. I forget which DLC these are, but they've added a couple new truss block variants, which are a curved one and kind of an angled one that goes between the offset and the center. And then we also have a couple new variations for, what are these called? The bay windows with diagonal ones and this, what do they call this? They call this inverted corner. Very nice, very cool. But yeah, that's all the DLC stuff. I hope I didn't miss anything, but yeah, it's really amazing. I think we're getting almost as much stuff in the free update as we're getting in the DLC, which is really cool. A lot of the DLC stuff, I've fallen outside my world. A lot of the DLC stuff is, functionally equivalent to stuff that is in the base game, or, you know, stuff like this, which is armor blocks. A lot of very neat stuff to go in this DLC, and I could see myself using quite a few of these in the future. In fact, this one in particular, I'm going to use quite a bit of the floodlights. I don't know that I'll use these small grid stuff very often because I usually build small grid ships, large grid bases, but for people who build small grid bases, there you go. You got a lot of new blocks to make you happy. These in particular, I think we're going to end up using for the AMG Sandstorm in the main survival series. Before we end this, I want to show you guys a couple of cool quality of life updates that they've added that I think are worth mentioning. I had included these earlier in the free section, but I moved them to the end of the video because they take like 3 minutes to explain, and I wanted to get to the blocks. So let's get to them. This one is one that I especially like, and that is the ability to set values for the piston, the rotor, and the hinge. Now that is incredible. Usually all you can do for the piston, rotor, and hinge is you can say like extend, retract. You can say this is the velocity, then turn, or whatever. You can say reverse, that sort of thing, but you could never tell it exactly where to reverse to. If you want a piston, all you could tell it to do is to go all the way up or all the way down. You couldn't tell it to stop somewhere in between. Now they allow you to do things like set and move, so I can tell it exactly where to go. If I go into this block, you'll see what I mean. I can drag the piston down, and now I have this new option, which is set and move. If I click this, it tells me I can set the distance between 0 and 2. Let's set it to 1.2, which is, you know, a little bit above halfway distant. We can also set the velocity here, so let's set the velocity to be 2, which is rather slow. And finally, we can give it a label, so we'll extend 1.2. Now, if I click this, what it's gonna do is it's gonna extend to that distance, and it's gonna use the velocity that I gave it. So there we go, it's extended to that one. I've got a couple more right here that I've set. Any button I set will bring it to a specific place that I have determined, which is really cool because this means that you can now make elevators and stuff. The rotor's very similar. You can have little buttons that tell it, you know, where to go, where to stop on the rotor thing, what speed to use, that sort of thing. I'll show you what that looks like here. So bring the rotor down, go all the way down to rotate to angle, and you now have an option to set the angle. We can give it at 0 if we want. We can set the velocity, 60 being the max, and we can also set the clockwise versus counterclockwise, which will tell it, you know, which way to go. Finally, you set a label, and kabam. Now it uses your options there to determine what to do, which is really amazing. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that. And finally, the hinge, you know, has a very similar thing to the rotor. They also added a couple new sound block options. So if I go to my sound block, they reworked the alerts. So now if you click the alert 1, this is what it sounds like. You know, it's a different siren. Alert 2. There we go. And alert 3. Yeah, some cool new options. I don't know that there's new stuff here. I'm not too familiar with the other stuff. I was very familiar with the alert, which is why it struck me as something that had changed. But anyway, to recap it, we've got a lot of cool decorative blocks for the DLC. I'm in a tree. We also have a lot of cool new Prototech blocks coming with the free update. All this stuff is endgame stuff that you cannot build unless you have that Prototech frame, which you have to find, or you can find these and then merge block them to your ship. And then of course we have, you know, a new cockpit, which you can get by signing up to their newsletter, a new inset connector block, and then, you know, a couple of cool new quality of life updates. That's gonna be everything that's gonna be in this Contact update. It's a very big update, and I'm excited to see how this plays out. If you wanna play this, they say it's backward compatible, but they do recommend that you start a new world. I'm gonna, of course, I have a survival series that's been running all year, so I'm gonna try to see if I can get all this stuff to work in that series. But yeah, let me know what you think about this update in the comments below. Are you excited for this one? Do you hope they had more? Do you hope they had less in this update? Are you overwhelmed by all the blocks added? I guess one thing that I wasn't able to show off very well are the encounters. I'm gonna let you guys find them for yourself, but there are encounters on the planet. There are encounters in space as well. They're out there for you to discover. So go discover them. But with that, we're gonna end this showcase video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, leave your comments and your suggestions down below in the comments section, and I will see you all in the next Space Engineers video.